New tool day. We got our AP200 from Autel. It's a little Bluetooth dongle that can connect to the smartphone, and we're going to connect that to the Saturn, run some GM diagnostics, and see if we can figure out why we're getting our airbag light on and our traction control on. Probably wheel speed sensors. Airbag system might just need to be reset, but we'll see what's going on there and give this thing a try. Install looks pretty easy on this thing. Just use our QR code, looks like, to connect to it. So I pull out my camera on my cell phone, point it at it, hit the open button. Oh, my lunch is ready. Beep, beep, beep. There's our thing. We open it up. Apparently I've already downloaded it, and I have to register now, which I'm going to do. And then we'll go plug this thing into the car. We have got our Autel AP200 set up. We're registered and everything like that. So now what we're going to do is plug in the car, because we still have the massive battery draw of the brake lights and the interior lights that are always on. And we're going to see what happens. So let's plug in the battery real quick. There we are. And is it working? Yep, we got our always on lights and our brake lights going. And our AP is plugged in, and it looks like it is registering as well. So it's down there, a little dark to see. Let's fire up the app and see what happens. So we got this guy here. Let's see if we can connect. So it says no device is connected. Let's try setting up in Bluetooth. And what is this thing called? I feel like I connected to it already. AP cap whatever. Is that it? Doesn't seem to be registering. Let's unplug it. Plug it back in. There we go. AP car would like to pair with my phone. I said pair. And let's see, is it successfully paired yet? Not yet. Let's connect. Now is connected and would like to communicate. I hit allow, and now we've got our little green light up in the corner, and now we can run diagnostics on, I don't know, doesn't look like I can run any diagnostics, so maybe I gotta go get the appropriate diagnostics. Did a little research already, and there's this USA diagnostic application that runs, and now I can run no, okay, authorization failure, that's fantastic. Car version is too low, upgrade first. This thing's been a nightmare, I gotta be honest, from the beginning. I'm kind of surprised. Autel has had really good reviews, but this thing just has not worked well. Let's go back to the Maxi AP app and take a look. All right, diagnostics, let's maybe add something. Saturn. Oh, no Saturn. How about under GM? GM. Cool. Optimize software. Claim for free. Okay, that's what I want, is the GM pack. Are you sure? Yes. Alright. So I've got that. Expires? It says it expires in a couple of years. That's kind of crap. Okay, let's go to our home, diagnostics, GM, update. Now it's updating the firmware. So I can't disconnect that now. Probably would have been smart to do that before it started to talk to the system. At least it's going pretty quickly. Thank God I have decent internet because we're downloading 600 megabytes and it's taken a second here to add the GM stuff. And now it says it's installing the GM stuff. Now that it's all done, it's now communicating. It actually picked up the car type and everything like that. And I'm going to hit auto scan from the diagnostics, and it's going to go through its little loop and see what we bring back. So we've got one fault in the engine control module. Got 7 faults in the electronic brake control module. We've got 7 faults in the SRS module. We've got 9 faults in the body control module. Only 4 faults in the passenger module, or instrument panel, passenger. Ooh, pass! We got a pass. And last but not least, we got a few more here going. Ooh, couple of passes so far. That's good news. Radio, don't care too much about that one, but it's probably locked out. Yep, fault there. Fault there. The Bluetooth fault there. So we got a grand total of 1, 8, 15, 24, 28, 29, 31 faults. Seems about right, I think. We've got a laundry list of problems with the car, but a lot of those look like they may be because of the old fried body control module. So what we're going to do is give the car a little bit of power again, run the diagnostics one more time, and then clear all the codes and see what comes back after a start cycle. So let's go to it. I just gotta wait for the MaxiSys to connect. We gotta reconnect to this thing again. It feels like every time I turn off the car and disconnect the battery, it loses all its memory to the Bluetooth. And I don't know if this is an Autel problem or if it's my phone, but it's pretty darn annoying. And it says pairing unsuccessful. If I go to the app itself and try to connect, no device connected, but the device is on and I got a green light. So I'm going to troubleshoot this really quick with the camera off and then see if we can get going. Well, it took about 6 different tries to actually get this stupid Bluetooth thing connected. So what we're going to do now, after successfully connecting, is go into our service functions, not service, sorry, go into our diagnostics and go into the GM, let it do its thing. And now we're going to go in and take a look at, why is it not, let's figure out automatically here. It's already forgotten my car apparently. So what we're really concerned here today is I'm going to try to clear out all the trouble codes for the brake sensor, because I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was no body control module. It seems like most of those were high voltages and probably when the system fried, so I'm just going to hit clear all of that. Codes have been erased, and then we're going to go back as well. It's going to reread those codes. And now we got 3 codes instead of 9. So now let's take a look and see what the codes are. And this will probably give us a much better idea of what we actually have to fix here. So lost communications with TCM, ABS brake circuit switch, and lost communications with yaw rate sensor. So we'll have to look up what the TCM is and what the yaw rate sensor is. I think the brake switch circuit is actually our brake pedal itself, and that's probably why the tail lights are stuck on, or the brake lights are stuck on all the time. I bet you that's heavily corroded, so we're going to take that off today too and see if we can clean it up and maybe get it to work without having to buy a new one. I found the switch for the brake and it is up in the brake mechanism as we expect it to be. So let's go take a look at where this thing actually is and then try to get it out. So if we look up inside of the brake, we can see that there's that little white thing there. And when I depress the brake pedal, it rotates that a little bit. So that's the switch that's probably not sending anymore, and that's probably why our brake lights are stuck on. So we got to remove that, do a quick test with the multimeter, see if it's something we need to order or if something we can just clean up with some CRC. I'm pretty sure it's just a 7mm, this little thing right here, that needs to come out. So I'm going to need to get a little ratchet and pull that out. Then this guy just clips right off. You can see it flexes. And then there's probably a plug somewhere up here, unless it's just a ground out plug, where that seems a little odd. So let's grab a 7mm and see if we can get that thing out of there. Good news is it is a 7mm. Bad news is that I'm going to need to use a wrench to get the remainder out of that because there's not enough room with the ratchet. So if you're ever doing this yourself, a 7mm ratcheting wrench would be your best friend. This is going to take a little while. Oh, fantastic. It wants to rotate on its own now. Oh, that's annoying. Well, at least we can see where the plug plugs in. But it's got a little fix pin on the back of it. So I gotta... Alright. So I gotta stick a wrench or something in there so it doesn't rotate on me. Because I think once it... Well, maybe I can rotate it down enough. After a very, very long time of yanking and pulling, we got out our little switch here, and it rotates cleanly, so it's not completely seized up, but it was probably underwater. So we got to figure out, do some testing and see if it actually tests out properly. It's also 3 pins, so I'll have to look up a little schematic and see if I can figure out what those 3 pins are. Probably ground, power, and then maybe signal. Bad news, the switch does not fix my brake lights always being on problem. It's completely removed from the car right now, which means it should be an open circuit, which means that the brake pedal's not being depressed, and therefore these shouldn't be on. So maybe there's a control module somewhere that is in the engine bay that it got a little bit wet and it's got a sealed circuit too, so more digging required. So I've got a couple of error codes around the transmission control module, so we're going to take a look at that, and that lives underneath the fender on the driver's side, which is actually damaged anyway, so we're going to pull that thing off today too, and try to get underneath it, see if there's any obvious damage to the transmission control unit, see if it's all corroded, anything along those lines. And even though the car did run, maybe we have some communication issues there that are causing some other problems. It also gives us a chance to take that fender off and maybe try to fix it, because we do have the part that broke off of it, so we might try to bondo that back together and save ourselves $500 or $600 in buying a new fender. So our fender is right here. It's very similar to our other one where we've got 7 mils up on the top here, a 10 mil down in the hole there, and then a couple of 10 mils underneath, and you can see this is where the cracks are and the big chunk missing here. I have this piece that goes in here that was in the passenger side footwell when I got the car. So let's go rip this thing off and see what kind of damage is underneath it. Handy little tool. Our entire bottom was broken off, it looks like here too. So if you look, the entire bottom's broken, which connects here, but that is still attached to the car down underneath, so I can take that off and maybe reconnect that. And then we've got this big piece here that we've actually got a piece for too. So I'm not sure. This looks like it's all fiberglass or some sort of plastic composite. So I don't know how repairable this is going to be, but with it being a track car, it doesn't necessarily need to look pretty. It just needs to work. So we'll clean this up and try to fix it another time. But now that it's off the car, we can get in and see some stuff. Here we can see the transmission control module, and it doesn't actually look, it looks like it's a sealed package, and it looks like it's an aluminum box. So I'm guessing it's probably okay. We might pop it out, see if we can crack it open and take a look at the board, see if there's any oxidization on it or anything along those lines. But I'm not too worried just looking at it, because the dirt line actually isn't that bad here if we look at the car. And I don't know how wet that got, and even if it got wet, if it anything soaked into it. Again, when we test drove the car, it did shift fine and didn't really throw any errors from that side of things. So who knows, but this may also have impact on the traction control system, which we won't really need on a track car. This is the brake position sensor. So on the Sky, unlike a lot of older cars where it's just an on-off switch that connects, this one actually does brake position sensing, and it's a potentiometer in here. And it looks like there's 3 different pins. From what little information I was able to tell on the internet, those 3 different pins go from the BCM and back to the ECU. So detecting some input, sending some output. But what we're going to do, just to test this out, is because this is a potentiometer and not just a continuity switch, we're going to set our multimeter over to ohms. And then we're going to take it and see if we can figure out, based on where touching some of these pins, if we actually get some resistance through them. So with the center pin and the outside pin, I've got some resistance. And then, let's see, go the other direction. Yeah, I've got good resistance there. Yep. So now what I'm going to do is actually enact the switch, stick it back in the vise so that it's got some degree of throw to it. So, and those numbers should be different if my guess is correct, which would mean it was working as well. So we were reading a 0.1 when it was completely opened, and now we're reading a 2.7 across one side of the pins, and then the other side we're reading a 0 right now, and then with it completely open, let's see what we're reading. Let's tighten this down again so it's easier to do. So across those pins, completely open, we're reading a 4.2. As I rotate this, now we got a 2.2. So resistance seems to be working both ways across the different pins. I don't think the switch is bad. It's been incredibly difficult to find schematic information about this on the internet. I probably am going to just order a shop manual before too long, just because there's a lot of stuff and a lot of computers on this car. But I think we can put this back in and then try, after a little research, try doing a brake control module sensor reset, which hopefully will fix our brake light problem. So let's give it a try. I also stumbled across an article from AC Delco's website about this particular part because they're the OEM on it. And it actually said there's a TSB for putting a bunch of dielectric grease on all of these pins. So I am going to grease them up with some dielectric grease right now, and so that when this thing goes back in, there is just plenty of connectivity. So apparently these don't connect all that great from the factory. I don't think that was our problem, but we might as well fix it while we got the thing apart. Success! Oh, fuck. Nope, my head doesn't fit through there. How do I get out of here? Ouch. Hey. Good news. We figured out why the taillights were stuck on. Apparently the auto light system was engaged, and with the headlights out of the car, I couldn't tell that the lights were actually on, and it's probably the ambient light sensor that is kicking them on automatically. So there's probably a problem with the ambient light sensor. But now that I can just turn them off with a switch, that means the interior lights for the car are automatically turning off on their own. That means the brake lights are turning off on their own. Everything's kind of working. The only thing left is our interior dome lights. Those are still turned on no matter what, but we're going to disconnect the battery real quick and see if that problem goes away as well with the auto lights disabled. Unfortunately, our dome light problem still remains, so we can't leave a battery in the car until we figure this one out. But the good news is we've got the other large draw going and fixed with the tail lights and actually the console lights as well. They're turned off. If I turn this on, I can't do it with the car actually the keys out, but if I had the auto lights turned on for some reason, even with the keys out of the ignition, it remembered that and was turning them on. So there's some other fault in our body control module here, but we're getting closer to making this entire interior usable for the sake of what we want it to be able to do, which is sit around with a battery in it and not drain the battery overnight. We've made some more progress, and in the most GM way possible. It was the simplest thing in the world. So, when we look at our dome lights, and most people, when they turn on push-button lights, when you press the button in, that means it's on. But not in GM land. When you press the button out, that's what turns the lights on. You couple that with the fact that after you press it back in again, sometimes it takes 20 seconds to turn off because of some sort of nighttime protection mode, and voila, you get lights that stay on seemingly forever because when you press them out, they're on, and when you press them in, they're off. Well, we learned something new today. The grease pen that they use to write all the stuff on this at Copart is pretty sticky. I tried just cleaning it off with some soapy warm water and rinsing it down, but that's not working. So we got out our razor blade, and it's a brand new fresh razor blade, and we're just going to carefully scrape this down so that Windex will work after we get it off there. So we don't want to go, gotta be careful with this, because if we scrape a little too deep, we'll start etching into our windshield. But generally speaking, it's pretty safe to use a brand new fresh razor blade to do this sort of thing. Kind of a pain in the butt. Gotta be a little careful. But it's easier than soaking it in water for 12 hours and then probably having it not work. And after a few soapy scrub downs, we got a nice clean windshield. So I gotta do it a couple other places and on the other side of the windshield there. And then on our actual side windows, there's a little bit more, and then we'll have clean windows. Yay! After doing a full refresh on everything, we are down from 17 or 18 faults down to only 8 faults on the car, and some of those I think we know what they are. So let's save this report and start digging into those problems. Well, here we are in a car that runs for the most part, and our lights are off, and we can actually probably take it for a real spin. But before we can actually do that, we got to put headlights back in the car. We got to make sure the trunk or the hood closes properly. We got to put the front air dam back on that we took off when we were drying out the intercooler. So I'm going to take it, spin it around really quick in the garage now that it moves under its own power, and from there we can actually put these things back together and go for a quick drive. We got some nice black soup. just water. It's just very black water. There's probably quite a bit of muck up in the exhaust still, so until it gets blown out, we'll have to deal with this, but that's okay. It's a little bit cold out here, and I left the air dam sitting outside for a couple of days just because it was in the way in the garage while I was doing other work. So we got to clean that up a little bit, and while we've got it off, we might as well clean some of the muck out of it. There's just muck all the way up in here, so I'm just going to take a rag and a brush really quickly and try to get as much of that out as I can before we go throwing this back on the car, because it doesn't seem like it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense to put filthy stuff back on the car. If anyone is curious how to get these things on, there are 4 of these push pins where you pull out the center part and the whole thing comes out. There's one there, there's one up on the underside here, another one in the same place here, and then another one over here. Once you take those off, the whole foam bumper comes off pretty quickly and easily, and you're ready to take that apart or put it back on again. Since I didn't do a video of taking this off, I will show how it goes back on. So there's a couple of 7mm bolts that go here. This one actually is broken in this case, but this is going to go to our wheel well cover when we put that on. And then you've got 4 bolts across the top here that come off. 7mm here as well. And then along the fender liner on the inside here, you have multiple 7mm as well. And then your belly pan down below has 7mm all the way along it too, that go right into this. Once you do all that up, it'll be connected and you're good to go, or disconnected. So it comes off pretty quickly. Last thing we gotta do is throw the headlights in. I didn't show those being removed, so we'll throw them back in and show you how those go together. But it's pretty easy. There is a bolt here, a bolt here, and a bolt here, and then a bolt here, and they bolt right up to the hood itself. And then there's a harness that I've got wrapped around back here, right here, that goes into those headlights, and we should be good to go. So that shouldn't take too long on either side. here we go. First maiden voyage of the once no electricity, water in the engine Sky. We're going to take it out for a quick drive beyond just the donut in my driveway and see how it goes, and hopefully we don't get stranded on the side of the road. So here we go. So first things first, we already have a check engine light on. Not sure what that's from. We could probably pull it. I did check all of my tire pressures. I did check my lugs on my wheels just to make sure that I'm not stuck in a situation where I'm getting screwed by something just totally unsafe. But this car is completely unregistered, has no insurance, has a California plate on the back of it right now, and that's probably not the smartest thing in the world. It is Thanksgiving, so I'm hoping that there aren't too many cops out to pay attention to something along these lines. But, you know, you probably don't want to try this at home. All right, here we go. First acceleration beyond 20 miles an hour. So good. Oh, well, that's interesting. I have no speedometer, so I have no idea how fast I'm going. This car is also very loud right now, but that's because I have no dampening whatsoever with all the carpets out of it, so not too surprising. It does feel like it might be in safe mode a little bit. Power's down a little bit, but I'm not pushing it too hard because, well, it still has a mix of the wrong type of oil in it just for testing purposes. All that rattling around is, well, everything that's sitting shotgun. It's all the parts that I didn't want to lose. They're sitting right down here below us right now. But yeah, definitely, it's kind of bogging under turbo. I can hear the turbo spooling up, but once the turbo spools, it's really not pulling too hard. That could be something to do with our check engine light. It could be in limp mode right now. It could just be that it's a very, very unhappy motor. We don't really know. I mean, first things first, the heat still works in the car just fine. It is a little cold outside, so I decided to put the top up and use the heat. It's actually getting a little warm in here, so I'm going to turn it down a little. And top seals up fine. There's no real heavy wind noise. Most of the noise is from the actual motor itself. If I floor it under third gear, it feels pretty decent. It starts to load up and pull a little bit, but I don't want to load it up too much when we've got bad oil in it and God knows what else. We want to put some light miles on it before we actually start beating on it, and maybe figure out what the check engine light is. The other thing that I'm noticing is that this thing turns great. I mean, the steering response is excellent. It feels really snappy. I can't complain at all about that. I'm sure with a good set of brakes on it and, you know, a little bit of practice, this thing's going to be a beast. Oh, well, I got a lot of smoke coming out of the engine bay right now. It may just blow up on me right now. It's a very real possibility. But it's a rubber smell. I'm guessing it's that belt that was completely coated in dirt and grime. May have just melted off all the dirt and grime, or may have just snapped. So the car doesn't feel like it's running rough. Not missing or anything like that, like it's overheating. I'm wondering if the reason I have no speedometer is because of wheel speed sensors. That would also be a good guess as to why my traction control isn't working and the stability management isn't working. Normally you need good wheel speed sensors for all of that stuff to actually work properly. So right now I got no speedometer whatsoever. I'm guessing I'm going about 45 miles an hour, but I don't really know. And I'm hovering at fourth gear on 2,500 RPMs. Come on, light change. I don't like sitting idle when things are burning. Need some air through that radiator. Oh wow. Yeah, we got a lot of smoke coming out of this thing. A lot of smoke. Oh, if I die right here, like 300 yards from my house, because I'm sitting at a traffic light, I'll be very upset. Well, something's not working right. It's a little smoky under here. Let's see what we got. Pull it up. I mean, we got splashes of water everywhere. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, that could just be steam from soaking water. Maybe it's just steaming up because all the water from the road was kicking right into the engine bay. I mean, I can't tell from smelling it. All right, so I noticed that there's some spray right in here, and this is definitely coolant. I just took a quick look at it and smelled it, and there's coolant everywhere. Look at it, coolant, 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 coolant. So maybe I had it's awful. Maybe I had a coolant hose disconnected, or maybe we blew something else up. So we'll have to take a look at it. We'll pull it back into the garage and figure out what's going on. Well, the theme of this show is that I'm an idiot. And I'm an idiot. So smoking tends to happen a lot when you don't put your hose clamps back and the car just blows the coolant pipe right off the motor and just starts spraying it everywhere into the engine bay. Good news is that's a pretty easy fix. Bad news is I gotta go get some deck school. It's Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna go to the store and do that. So I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for checking in on how things are doing. I think we're making a lot of progress for less than $100 spent on this car so far. More fun to come in the future.